Over the past week, I've spent way too many hours talking to leaders at Spikeball, Brookline, and I've also spoken with numerous parties that have firsthand experience with one or both parties involved in this matter, just to shape what questions I need to be asking and try to bring as much analysis as possible for you all. So as of today, the 13th of April, I'm going to synthesize some of the key questions I still have and also what I've learned from the public statements, some community emails, and also private conversations I've had with both Brookline and Spikeball, just to share where I see things right now and what I do and don't understand. So I care really deeply about Roundnet and pushing it forward, and you're probably watching this because you feel the same way. So I just want to note, I don't know exactly how this event will shake out. If there's more legal action going on, I do not know. But just know my intention is just that Roundnet continues to grow in that space and that there's more positive things going on in the community. This has definitely been a bummer to just have this sad note of just things not working well between two companies that both have wanted good things for Roundnet. All right, let's get into this breakdown. So, what is a distribution agreement? A distribution agreement is, pretty straightforward. Basically, Spikeball provides the equipment, Brookline distributes it, and the unit economics are pretty simple. Spikeball, makes a profit on their wholesale to Brookline, and then Brookline gets to mark it up and sell it to end consumers, whether that is sporting goods retailers or just end users in the EU. And I did get confirmation from Chris at Spikeball, he's the CEO, that there were terms for payment in the contract. It wasn't like you can just pay by the end of the contract in 2025. I didn't get any more specifics, but that sounds pretty normal generally. Here's some general info about how contracts work like this. And so initially things are going pretty well. There's a lot of tailwinds from the outdoor consumer brands overall doing well with the COVID lockdowns. But then the industry starts to slow down in 2022. And so Brookline moves to demand planning instead of cash flow. I don't really need to worry about this, but the specific thing that comes up here is with this change, Brookline cites they can take excess inventory and return it to Spikeball if they're not able to sell it. So this is the really big claim, kind of where a lot of dominoes start to become relevant. And so in 2022, they place this big order. Russia invades Ukraine. There's other, economic challenges in Europe. And so all of a sudden, they have 1.2 million euros worth of excess equipment. One community question has been, what was this product? Was it obsolete? I didn't get any feedback from Brookline on this, but Spikeball did note that Brookline had full control over what they purchased. Spikeball never forced any particular products onto Brookline. Spikeball just made products available. So it wasn't like Spikeball's offloading like €1 million worth of just like Spike Brights and saying good luck. It was probably things that Brookline was selling well in 2021. They bought probably more of the same things in 2022 is what my guess would be there. But back to the relevant things here. Brookline shares this note in the ugly truth that they want to be able to return the goods back to Spikeball. And Spikeball then sends an email out to community members saying, this is just categorically false. Not many more details, kind of trying to prove that something didn't happen. So it's a weird documentation thing to pull up. Brookline doubles down here and actually shares an excerpt from some documentation citing the return of documents and products in stock, saying that things have to get paid for by the supplier back to the distributor, and the distributor being Brookline means it's their discretion to return stock. So this is their big claim. This might be breaking with the video, but I asked Spikeball for any response to this excerpt. Chris Reuter told me the following. He said, I know Brookline has been circulating a single clause from our contract that states we were required to take inventory back. They conveniently left out the part that says we only have to take inventory back if the whole contract is canceled. So basically that means if the contract was canceled and then Brookline was like, hey, we have all the stock, take it back, that would make sense. But basically this has happened in reverse. Brookline didn't pay for the stock. Spikeball canceled the contract and then Brookline said, well, you owe us for this stuff. The other note here as far as, is that they said between this being taken out of context, I just want to come back to the contract here. We look at Article 20 and then we look at Section 20.2, or maybe it's Clause 20.2. I'm not a lawyer, but I am good at numbers, and it feels safe to say there's got to be some 20.1 line item between these two blocks that isn't public. So we don't know exactly what that says, but we do know we don't have the full document. And so this return of goods claim by Brookline appears to be at least out of context and not like the full truth, despite like their framing of it as such. So that's, I think, a really important takeaway here for this chat. And just one other thing I want to note and harp on here is if this 1.2 million euros is like this big debt, and it was created in September 2022 when Spikeball and Brookline set up this payment plan. I'm wondering why Brookline didn't, make a claim that they shouldn't owe this debt back in 2022. It seems like the timing just doesn't make sense. If I'm screwed out of €1,000,000 and then I owe someone money, I don't know why I would just accept that if I should not have had to owe that debt in the first place. But anyway, the other big questions that remain are around some big numbers. So let's just look at those. So these questions, I brought almost all of these to Brookline, and I haven't been able to get them answered. I'll talk a little more about that later. But I asked them how much it actually cost for them to store this extra equipment, because that seemed to be a really big cost and pain point for maybe they got these goods sold, but then they couldn't pay back the excess costs they faced. I didn't get any context for that. Brookline said they did demand planning with a 2x growth rate, but then their sales exceeded their goals in 2022 by 827%. That's exceptional. So seems like they couldn't have had too much product for that long if they sold out way more than what they projected to have. I don't know what the timeline was of when they paid these costs, when they made these sales, but the question still remains, if they did exceed expectations by 827%, what was preventing Brookline from paying Spikeball for this product? That's the key question. I asked Brookline to share the scale of like their sales in gross terms so I can compare it to the 1.2 million euros of debt, but no answer. And just fast forwarding to today. So Brookline's saying they have 1 million in purchase orders as of January 2024, but Spikeball won't supply them with more equipment. So Brookline's fully out of equipment, and if they've sold all this equipment, where did this money go? Right, like they've got 1.2 million euros of equipment, and they're marking that up when they sell it to retailers, when they're selling it to end users. They're not selling it for exactly 1.2 million euros. So it just begs the question, where has that money gone? I don't know the answer to that question. Brookline has declined to answer that question at the time, and Spikeball doesn't know the answer to that question either. So just some closing thoughts. Some last miscellaneous thoughts before I wrap things up here is Brookline was declared bankrupt before they published this article. So maybe they're just like upset and sharing some grievances. Maybe they actually have a case to make legally. But if they have a case to make legal, I'm confused why they're like going into the court of public opinion right now. That seems like weird timing to actually go and have a material legal battle against Spikeball. For Spikeball's part, Chris mentioned to me that bankruptcy for Brookline doesn't really do anything good for them because they're owed $1.5 million by Brookline. So in Spikeball's view, Brookline basically is getting this $1.5 million of inventory, and they don't have to pay for it because we don't know where that money is, but Spikeball is not getting that money back. And I'm still really confused about Brookline simultaneously exceeding the sales targets but owing money. So I can't speculate any further than that. I just find that to be really confusing. And when I spoke to Brookline, I was confused because they said they want to like share documents openly if anyone reached out to them for requests. And I was like, oh, great. Like I would love to know more. I would love to know as much of the full story as possible so I can put it into context, because I'm just hearing sound bites. I haven't been involved in any of this work, so I would love to learn more. And they're not able to share anything at this time. What I did hear from Tom is that the person who's handling Brookline's bankruptcy just doesn't want to share any further details, which, again, that makes perfect sense from a legal view. Just what's frustrating for me is that Boss and or Tom like kicked off this discourse, and it's been very upsetting to not just communities across Europe that have been excited about working with Brookline, but it's also just affecting people like me and others around the Roundnet community that just want to understand what's going on. And it seems like maybe there's still ongoing legal proceedings between Brookline and Spikeball. So I think it's been pretty unfair to the Roundnet community that we are getting, just like extra stress from these two companies just yelling at each other back and forth with half context. All that to say, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this matter, and I'll be actively chatting back in the comments. So I'm really grateful to just all the professional and personal relationships I've been able to lean on just so I can talk to people at Brookline and Spikeball, as well as other people with more firsthand experience in this domain. I'm grateful I can share that all that with you listening here. So I hope you all stay curious, and see you in the next thing.